Welcome back in, everybody, to Pro Football Plus. I'm Ben Parker. We've got Austin on board again. We've got Shane on board again. We've got all of you on board with us tonight. It is a privilege to have you. We have some people who listen to us every single week faithfully. We really appreciate you guys. And we have some folks who kind of come and go, and maybe some for the first time. So we really appreciate it. We are so loaded tonight. There is so much to talk about. We're going to get right to it. The breaking news today, of course, the news of the day, our lead story of the day, is Robert Saleh, of course, of the New York Jets, has been let go and fired today. I'm going to get everybody's thoughts on that first, then we'll hit some other lead stories. But Shane, you were hitting lead off. What was your first impulse when you heard it today?
Surprised by the timing, not surprised by the final outcome. We had talked about it before on the show where we thought that his time was not going to last throughout the season. I think the Jets have continued to have issues probably since last year with the Aaron Rodgers injury, and then seeing that the team definitely wasn't on the same page. And it looked like every step of the way, Saleh was fighting it. And for them to make the move kind of right now, I don't think it's going to change the team's outcome in any way, but I'm also not surprised that they made the move right now.
Shane, real quick before I get to Austin, did it surprise you? Last I heard, Hackett is still there, not gone. Did that surprise you at all?
Yeah, I think it's surprising that if you think all the problems fall directly on the head coach and there's no change around on there, he's a defensive mind. You end up naming the defensive coordinator as your interim. So then is his side of the ball really the issue, or is the offense the issue right now? So I was surprised that he stuck around. I kind of thought this might be a more of a clearinghouse than what it was. So
I was waiting on the other shoe to drop. I figured Saleh out, and then a couple of hours later, we'd hear about Hackett being out too. So far, not the case. Austin, your first impulse on hearing all of it today?
Yeah, I like Shane was a little surprised by the time, but not that it happened. It was kind of an inevitability with how the season started. It seems so disappointing for the Jets to be 2-3, but when you look at their losses, only one of them is disappointing, and it's a real bad one. They lost to the Broncos, but they lost to a very good Vikings team. They lost to a very good 49ers team. So, I mean, really, they've really only quote unquote lost one game they shouldn't have. But overall, I do think the hot seat was already pretty darn hot for Saleh to start the season, and this kind of sputtering out of the gate, specifically offensively, is all it really took to get him out of there. I did hear a report that Saleh was about to can Hackett. Like that was like about to happen, and then he got canned before he could can Hackett. So I'm wondering, this is, it's like the multiverse. In this universe, we get the Saleh firing. In a different alternate universe, Saleh stays, Hackett goes. I wonder how differently these two teams end up in those two different universes with those differences. It's a minor difference, but could make a big change potentially.
It's been going on in the business world for literally decades. It is modern NFL life, right? Who can get who first when the seats get hot, right? I mean, it's GM, it's the coordinators, it's the coach. Some of the owners sticking around, so it's kind of who can get who first. Unfortunately, these people all see each other every day. They work with each other hours every day. I mean, it's not easy to do it, but when it's me or you, it's not a hard choice. And I'm not at all surprised that what you guys are telling me here that this was kind of there were a lot of possibilities floating around here. I do feel like Hackett should be gone too. I mean, clearly the offense is struggling, hasn't looked good, even with Aaron here for 5 games. I'm not surprised Saleh's gone. We all talked about it during the offseason more than once, that his seat was hot and that he didn't get off to a pretty good start. I didn't think week 5, though. I kind of sort of figured, hey, maybe by midpoint of the season, if they're struggling, maybe then he was out. But I kind of like it because I would have gotten rid of him during the offseason myself. I kind of felt like it was a nod to Aaron Rodgers' injury last season that he was allowed to stay around this year. I like it that they didn't let this linger all year. I just wish Hackett had gone too. I guess we're seeing the Aaron Rodgers influence, that Hackett is still kind of getting to stick around as Aaron's guy, while Saleh is the first one out the door and won't be the last if the losing continues. That's for certain. One little thing I did want to hit tonight that a lot of outlets never really cover Shane, I want to start it with you, and I'll let Austin pitch in if he wants to. How good is Saleh as a defensive coordinator from what you saw before, Shane? And what teams might ought to be looking at him next year? There's a lot of unknowns there. We don't know who's winning, who's losing, but what teams might he be looking at defensive coordinator wise next season?
I think he's a classic example of someone that was excellent at what their main priority was, and then maybe this job as a head coach and CEO of the team is a little bit too much for him. In San Francisco, he ran an excellent defense there. I mean, obviously had the players, but he's done well defensively for the Jets as well. They're still running a very similar scheme to what he ran before. And although he's not the defensive coordinator, I definitely know that he has his fingers in that pie. The thing becomes, after this breakdown with the word of how the locker room changed on him, with some of these other things that have been mentioned, with Woody Johnson not letting him address the team and having him escorted out of the building, are there some other things brewing underneath? I mean, right now, I think the Dallas Cowboys have quite a few issues, but if Zimmer's not going to be your defensive coordinator next year, Saleh's not a bad look here. If you're another team that has offense but can't get your defense, if I interview him and he interviews well, I think when you give him one side of the ball and let him do what he's best at, I think he'd be a good grab. Is that next year? Do we let him sit a year and kind of do the coaching reclamation project? You don't have Nick Saban in the college game anymore, so you can't go down there and learn how to call defenses. But there's always analyst spots. You see a lot of coaches sometimes do the 1 year out and then they'll come back in. It does a little bit, lets their agent rehab their profile and get them back in there. But I think defensively, I would trust him with my defense. I wouldn't trust him with my entire team. I think he tried to be more Shangri-La and buddy with the offense, and I don't think the offense ever took to it. Aaron Rodgers obviously never took to it. And if you lose that offensive side, especially your starting quarterback, I think it's going to be very difficult to be a head coach in the NFL.
That was my vibe as well. I just never liked him as head coach from an early standpoint. When I kind of got little video clips of watching him in the locker room here and there, it wasn't kicking in along with the losing on the field. Austin, final thoughts on Saleh here, and any thoughts you may have on a team you might like him for next year as DC?
I think you got to give him a year. Truly, I think 2020. Well, he got fired so early. Maybe it's not, but I personally like when a head coach gets fired to give them a year to kind of reset. So that's what I wouldn't. If I was a team, I wouldn't be looking to fill him into my coordinator spot just yet. But 2026, I would definitely have my eyes on him. I think he is a quality DC. He proved that in his time in the Bay Area, and he put up a pretty good defense in New York as well. So yeah, 2026, I'm definitely looking for him.
Yeah, a couple teams that came instantly to mind for me, not looking at so much at fit, but just, hey, we might need a DC. He might be a guy we look at. Rams struggling, a lot of it's personnel. 49ers been struggling for a couple of years now, not looking as crisp as they did when D'Amico Ryans was there. And then the other team that just completely escaped me. So, the Eagles. Yeah, the Eagles, shoveling coordinators through. So we'll see about them. They haven't looked horrible this year, but if things fall apart there, they bring in a whole new staff. Saleh might be a guy who latches on there as a DC. All right, that's enough of Robert Saleh. Next time to give some attention to somebody that maybe isn't getting enough of it. I'm going to give my attention tonight to Kirk Cousins, who you see here on the screen. He was going to be my center of attention until Saleh a few hours ago kicked him off the front page. So for on our back page now, listen, Kirk Cousins just had a heck of a night, man. I mean, he wasn't perfect or flawless, but he was just eating up yardage, and then you had the points kind of come on in the second half and overtime there. So Kirk Cousins just had a phenomenal game. Unfortunately, I didn't start him on my fantasy team this week, so I got roasted there. But listen, Kirk Cousins had a breakout performance here. Yardage all over the place. You get the win. You're 3-2. I think they're leading the division, or they're tied for the division lead. Last I checked with Tampa Bay. Then on tiebreakers. Everything feels good in Atlanta. How long will that last? Well, until next week, and they get their next win or loss. But big night for Atlanta, especially for Kirk Cousins to show, hey, I'm not old. I can still do this, and I'm still working my way through some of the things. So major shout out to Kirk Cousins and the entire Falcons team on a crazy night. This was a wild game for those of you who didn't get to see it. This was a crazy night. Shane, who do you want to give some more attention to tonight?
My attention goes to the team that I always try to bury as quickly as possible in any discussion we have with the NFL, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. I thought offensively they looked very impressive against the 49ers, and the defense played a lot better than I expected against a 49ers team that knew they needed a victory. Kyler Murray calling his own number and pointing to the end zone after he beats one defensive lineman, knowing that there's nobody else that's going to catch him for the next 65 yards. The Cardinals have a different feel to them this year. I mean, later on in our segment where things I got wrong, they're also going to star in that segment, but I was just overly impressed. Both sides of the ball, thought they played really well. And in a division that's not settled, I think they marked themselves as a team to watch out for.
I agree. I was hoping to see that, even though I was kind of wanting the 49ers to win. I was at least hoping to see that Cardinals offense crank it up and give us something to kind of watch the rest of the year there. But they pulled out the win too. Loving it. Austin, who else do you want to give some attention to tonight?
I'm going to give mine to CJ Stroud, Texans quarterback. He's still a super young guy. I think not a lot of people recognize that this is just his second year in the league. He feels like he's been dominating the NFL for the last 4 seasons, but no, he just made his fifth start in his second year in the NFL. So he's a super young guy, again, kind of just keeping on that train moving along, but he's doing it without his star running back. Joe Mixon was brought in this year. He was clearly supposed to be heavily involved in the offense based on what he did in like the first 2 weeks of the season. He goes down with an injury, and the Texans grind out 2 gritty wins on the backs of CJ Stroud and him using his receivers. And then this week, Nico Collins goes out with an injury after a big play. And Nico Collins, in my opinion, is probably the 5th best receiver in the NFL right now. That man is so good. He goes down with an injury, and Stroud still figures out a way to lead this offense and command this Texans team to a win against a very, very good Bills team.
I agree. I was startled at how quickly they latched on to Joe Mixon as such a huge part of their offense and how much they seemed to miss him the couple of weeks when he was out. That kind of shocked me a little bit, and yet Stroud's fighting through that, and they find ways to win, and here they are sitting about where most of us thought they would. I'm going to give attention to one more person here in just a second. Before we get to Struggle Bus, Shane, anybody else you want to give a story to or attention to before we hit the Struggle Bus?
No, I think you hit on the big one with Cousins. He's a lot of teams' second choice. I mean, you look at Washington, the history of him getting to the NFL. But the thing he does is he eliminates a lot of mistakes that some quarterbacks make, and he is good at knowing that he's not the highest potential in the offense. He is going to get the ball to playmakers. And last year, you look at Atlanta's offense, and everyone was like, why don't we ever throw the ball to Drake London? Why don't we give it to Bijan Robinson? Why are we not getting the ball to Kyle Pitts? Like, we have all these offensive weapons. Why does our offense not revolve around these guys? And Cousins a great distributor. You know, he really is a point guard in the quarterback position. He gets the ball out there, lets them make the plays. Seems to be coming back. We said off of that first week, you could see like the Achilles still looked like it was bothering him. This week, again, he doesn't look super fast, but he looked a lot more comfortable out there. So I think a great call on him, and I think he's probably taken himself completely off the struggle bus from here on out.
We're gonna put him off of it tonight. We'll do that here in just a second. Austin, before we hit the struggle bus, anything else you want to highlight here as anything special?
No, I'm ready to hop on the Greyhound here.
Real quick before we do the struggle bus, I also wanted to give some extra attention to Caleb Williams, who had kind of his first coming out party, if you will. Really big. Listen, I know it was at home, I know it was against the Panthers, but still, Caleb Williams had himself a day passing the football. He was tremendous. And then even picking up yardage with his feet. So good game for him. Obviously, he's going to have to keep doing that, but huge day for him. And really, really excited for Caleb Williams there with his first big game. Let's move on to the old struggle bus. Here it is. We got Instagram on here. Unfortunately, I don't mean to rub salt in the wounds, but Robert Saleh is driving the struggle bus now, of course. We've got the Bengals D, the Cowboys D, the Giants D all on here. One guy that has played himself off, y'all have already mentioned it, Kirk Cousins. He had a couple of decent weeks already, but we're going to leave him out here on the street. He ain't riding that bus no more. He's going to have to pick up a ride somewhere else. So congratulations to him. I've put on the Cleveland Browns here. You can't see them because of the monitor, but listen, the Cleveland Browns just suck right now, okay? There's no other word for it. We mentioned last week they looked sick. Well, they looked even sicker this week in a beatdown. And I don't know how much of that you can point to the quarterback position. I'm perfectly willing to throw a good 80% at the quarterback spot because it just seems like it's kind of like a virus infecting the whole team. But, listen, they're not playing well, and the end doesn't seem to be anywhere near in sight. And it just looks like it's going to be a really long season for Cleveland. So they are on my struggle bus this week, the entire cotton-picking team. Shane, who else is on the struggle bus?
So you kind of stole the thunder on this one, Ben, because although Cleveland is completely terrible, and I agree on that standpoint, Deshaun Watson was he was definitely going on the bus. I think a microcosm of everything is the fourth down where Stefanski planned on going for it, and he just walks off the field. I've never been a real fan of his, dating back from even his Texans days, and then there's a multitudes of reasons, according to legal and non-legal reasons, not to be a fan of his. But he has not looked like a quarterback for the last couple of years. And the easy way to show that is all his backups in Cleveland go on to other teams and compete when they're starting for Cleveland. He looked terrible in that game. You can see physically the offensive line doesn't want to be a part of that offense with him in it.
Yeah.
They don't pick him up after he gets hit. They look back at him when throws go sideways. Like it is going to be a restart in Cleveland. The faster they can clear the books and get him off after just an absolutely terrible contract. It's just bad. Like I think Cleveland is in a worse spot than when you look at like Jacksonville and Carolina. Like there were reasons why we knew those teams were not going to be as competitive as they should be. Cleveland still had a good defense, still has offensive numbers. This one fully, in my mind, falls on Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, take for take here. You stole it right out of my mouth. I was going to say, if I'm a Cleveland fan right now, I feel way worse than if I'm a Jacksonville fan or a Jets fan right now. I figure I still have some kind of hope. If I'm Cleveland right now, especially because of that contract, I'm like, well, dadgummit, got nothing next year or maybe the year after that because of how large that guaranteed number is. I mean, it's depressing. It really is if you're a Cleveland fan.
Yeah.
I know a lot of them are hoping for Jameis Winston, right? I mean,
I was going to say, if you're a Cleveland fan, you hope that something, and it's terrible to say this, but you hope something comes out of one of these legal ones that makes that contract null and void and that you can get those numbers off the books. But that's a terrible thing for you to have to worry, for you to pray for a crime to help your team.
Yeah, it is. But if you're a Cleveland fan, that's where you're at. And I hate it for the fans. But listen, the owner kind of gets what he deserves there, and so does the quarterback. But I hate it for the fans and the other players. Austin, who's on the struggle bus, man?
It's funny. I legitimately was going to put the Browns offensive line on the struggle bus, was going to be mine, but I'll pivot. I do think the Browns offensive line is the single worst unit in all of football right now. And I know y'all are, they're so bad. There's not a unit in the NFL collectively as bad as the Browns offensive line, and I will stand by that. I'm not a Deshaun Watson truther. I'm not saying it's not Watson's fault that they're so bad either, but I mean, I don't know how many quarterbacks would be able to succeed. A lot could do better than Deshaun Watson, but I don't know about having legitimate success. I don't know how realistic that is with that current offensive line and how injured they are. But I will pivot to a different one, and I want to talk about the 49ers, who are 2-3 right now. I mean, the favorites to win the NFC coming into the year. Their schedule starts off where it looks like it's supposed to be pretty easy going in with the Jets and the Vikings. Not that either teams were supposed to be bad, but they were supposed to be pretty easily beatable for this 49ers team. They handled business against the Jets, and then the Vikings come in and win the game. And then they lose a back-to-back game, another game, a divisional game against the Rams. They handle business against the Patriots, which there was really never a doubt about that one. And then this week, the Cardinals roll in to San Fran and take a win against the 49ers. And this team is struggling. They seem to not have any glaring issues. It just seems that they cannot get the stop when it's needed at the end of the game, or they cannot put together the drive at the end of the game. They seem to have a very competent team for 3.5 quarters or however long until it just suddenly and it's not like they fall apart completely. It seems like they just kind of quietly are
Yeah.
muffled at the end of the games. And it's weird. This is not what we expected. They do have a couple, tough games coming up. The Seahawks, I think they should handle business, but it's a divisional game. You never know with that. The Chiefs, then the Cowboys, then the Buccaneers. So the schedule's not getting much easier. So I don't know if we see a 49ers team that's above 500 by the time November rolls around.
It's a fair question. They do not look like what I expected them to look like. So they'll be on the struggle bus for sure. And listen, we're hoping all these people get off just about. If Brian Dable and the Giants win again next week, if Caleb Williams has another good week, we'll get them off the struggle bus too. Some of the other members look like they may be here for a while. We aren't wrong very often, right? Because we're pretty good at this. We study things and we kind of sort of know what we're talking about as much as anybody. But every once in a while, we get something wrong and we're not too proud to admit it. So that's going to be our next segment. We're going to eat a little humble pie tonight. And we're going to talk about what we got wrong. Again, not a lot. I'll hit mine first. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. The two street fights notwithstanding, all right? They went toe-to-toe with Baltimore and toe-to-toe with Kansas City and could have won either game. I get it. But by and large, I have been wrong on Cincinnati so far. I picked them to be just a hair behind Baltimore. They're really not on the whole season. And I picked them to be the 5 seed in the AFC, and they're going to have to really, 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 really work just to even make the playoffs at all, which they're capable of doing. But so far, I was wrong on Cincinnati. I thought they would have a pretty good year. I figured Burrow would come out looking healthy and happy, which he has, but the rest of the team is not. What's really got me down on Cincinnati, and I know their next 4 games are nothing. They could go on a 4-game winning streak. But I tell you what's really got me down on Cincinnati, both the offensive lines and the defensive lines right now are struggling. I mean, they are really scuffling. And you can get by with one in the NFL and scheme for it. It's really hard to win in the NFL when both lines are struggling. And right now they're struggling on both sides. It's Reader being gone to a different team on the defensive line, plus the 2 injuries at defensive tackle that is really hurting them there. But the offensive line, a lot of money has been sunk into that, and it has not paid off over the past 2 or 3 seasons. They have tried to address it. It has not worked, and I don't know what's kicking in there, but they are struggling on both O lines and D lines, and that's causing that whole defense to look really, really bad, as Austin mentioned more than once over the past few weeks. So far, I've been very wrong on Cincinnati. And listen, even if they win 3 of their next 4 against weak opponents, right, I'm not necessarily going to change my mind until we get deeper in the season and they start showing something different on the 2 lines. So that's the one that I have been wrong on so far. Shane, what you missing?
I kind of mentioned it already in the who needs a little bit more attention. And I said earlier this year that I thought the Cardinals would be a little bit better than they were last year. I think that they have the opportunity now to become a bully. They're playing well offensively and defensively. Austin kind of hit on, like, when you're looking at San Francisco, it's not that they're falling apart in one specific spot, but that they didn't pull through. Arizona normally would have fallen through in a game like that. San Francisco would have gotten a one last run, one more completion, or gotten a big defensive stop, and Arizona didn't take their foot off the gas on either side. So I love to bag on the Cardinals, but I will also eat crow, another bird on this one, because I think that they are going to be dominant this season. I think they could have a really good year.
I hope so. I would really enjoy seeing it. They got their work cut out for them like anybody, but I would love to see it. Austin, what might you have been wrong on so far in this season?
I was a Jacoby Brissett truther this season. I thought he was going to lead the Patriots to an above expectations run. I thought he was going to hold off Drake May for at least 2/3 of the season, a majority of the season, but it's looking like Drake May is going to start this week in week 6, and the Brissett experiment has not paid off. I put my money where my mouth was early in the season. I picked them to win in week 1, which I can't say I don't think a lot of people had expected that or also picked that. I picked them to upset Cincinnati, and they did. And then it just never got pretty. It never kind of manifested itself. A loss to Seattle, then the Jets, then the 49ers. And then I was like, this week they get back on track. The Dolphins are the worst team in the league. They will beat the Dolphins. And they do not beat the Dolphins due to a Jalen Polk heel touching after his toes. A really complex rule, but it was an incomplete pass, wasn't a touchdown, and the Patriots lose. So yeah, I was wrong. I had predicted Jacoby Brissett to get the job done. I had always talked about like how low his interception percentage was, and it's still really low. He only threw 1 pick through 5 weeks, but 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So you got to be better. You cannot be that like I guess conservative, I guess is the way to put it. Like just never taking any risks, never putting the ball in harm's way, but you're not going to get anything out of that. It's the NFL. You got to push the envelope a little bit sometimes. So, yep.
Yeah. We've seen him play better for sure. I don't think he's been dreadful, but he has not been good either. We're going to switch this week. Instead of doing 2 games, we've been picking 2. We're going to do 1. It's going to be our matchup of the week, our game of the week. Real quick, first of all, let's do a little points update. We've switched, by the way. I don't know, Austin, I don't know who to give credit to for this. If it's you or Parker or Peyton. Okay, all right. We've switched our currency over to Goatsworth, okay? So instead of using just regular old points or coins, we're now using that wonderful system of goats, and I'll probably add in some cheeses as well.
Would you like me to give the quick explanation of how this is a thing?
Yeah, man. Lay it on us.
So in high school, I had this running bit where anytime someone like asked me like, oh, how many of this or how tall or how something, I would always just say, oh, at least 12. And just never any units with it or in either. I would just at least 12. It was a standard answer. And this was a running bit all through high school with me and my friends. And one time Parker comes up to me and he goes, 12 what, man? And I was like, 12 goats worth. And it stuck.
Well, I love it. And I'm a huge fan of alternate currencies, whether that's Bitcoin or goats or even the Star Wars pieces of money. I love it all. Okay. So we're switching to Goatsworth for the foreseeable future. Shane has 110, Austin with 70, Ben with 140 right now. And our matchup of the week is in London, the Jaguars and the Bears. This was a matchup that I was really looking forward to here. So Bears 2.5-point favorites, of course. I've got a whole bunch of their statistics here. I won't even rattle them all off, but this is offensive and defensive rankings here, if you will. You can pick anything tonight. So if you want to pick winner, you can do that. If you want to pick rushing yards for a player, passing yards for a player, you bet on anything you want. But Shane, give us a feel for the game and who you think will win, and then tell us what your bet for the night is.
I think we've kind of bagged on the Jaguars and how that's not going to help them in any way. So I would pick the Bears in honor of the newly titled Goats. And in honor of Austin's pick, I will go with 12 Goats for the Bears to get this victory.
All right. I like it. Austin, where are you going with tonight's game, man?
I like the Bears as well. Caleb Williams versus Trevor Lawrence. This is, 2 guys who are super highly touted when they were coming out of the draft. Trevor Lawrence has not lived up to the expectations. Obviously, too early to tell with Caleb Williams, although I think we've talked about in the last 2 weeks with how he's kind of starting to progress. And I think that progression continues. I think he is going to have a statement game. This is one overseas. These games can be super finicky. A lot of times we see them end up being a lot lower scoring than you would anticipate. And that happened last week with the Jets versus Vikings game. And I'm expecting that to happen again in this game. So I'm going to take the Bears to win the game, but I'm going to be betting on the over-under. I'm going to take the under. I think it's set at 44.5 right now is what I'm seeing. So, that's what I like. And I'll bet 10 goats worth on that.
10 goats worth on the under. I agree with everything you guys are putting out there. I'm picking the Bears to win. I tell you what's really driving that is this Bears defense. They have played well. even when Caleb Williams has struggled, they have played well, and it's the biggest reason that they're having such a decent start to the season here. The only thing that gave me pause is this is kind of a home game for the Jaguars. They play here so much. I thought, well, maybe that slows the Bears down a little bit, but man, I'm just about to hop off this Trevor Lawrence bandwagon, man. I've been on it for a long freaking time, and I'm just kind of exhausted. It's like, when does this really, truly, permanently change? And it hasn't. The Jaguars' defense is dreadful. I didn't even realize how dreadful they were until I started looking at it. But the Bears' defense is really good. The Jaguars' defense sucks. And Caleb Williams showed some life last week. So give me the Bears, man. Give me the Bears straight up to win this thing. And I'm gonna put 10 coins on that, 10 goats worth on Bears to just straight up win this thing in London. That'll be on the NFL Network Sunday morning football for those of you who don't usually get that sort of thing. All right. I think we're starting to run out of our segments. So let's go to our final 60. Shane, who you'd like in the final 60?
My final 60 is college football again. Last week was a disaster if you were a top 10 team, but for those fans that like to see the up and comers get a victory, it was a great week for them. For people who have been waiting for Kalen DeBoer and Alabama to drop, they can say, look at this. This is when Nick Saban's gone. This is what happens. But I also think one team that needs to be talked about is the University of Indiana. Or Kurt Cignetti, he told the media in the very beginning, I win games, Google me. And he is undefeated. He has an Indiana team that hasn't been 6-0 since the 1950s. Got a great quarterback in Rourke from a MAC team. And their offense looks great, and the team is playing great. He, again, from the Saban profile, and has raised himself up through the coaching ranks. I thought it was a great hire by Indiana, and they keep winning. So watch out, Big Ten.
Austin knows this from the Major League Baseball side, but I love underdogs and I love Midwest type programs, franchises, schools, whatever. So I've watched Indiana start off 4-2. I can't tell you how many times over the decades now. They were decent in the 90s when I first started watching, but I haven't seen a team that really truly looked like this. I mean, they truly look like they're a force to be reckoned with, and I love it. I love every second of it. So give it all to me, along with all the upsets we saw last week. Austin, your final 60.
This is going to be a bit of a 3-for-1 kind of a deal here. I'm going to go with the Hurricanes. And I mean, a few things with this. I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes, the hockey team, the NHL team, I went to a game. That was a lot of fun. I am not a hockey fan, but they're actually a lot of fun. I know nothing about the sport, but we had pretty good seats in the stadium. It was a preseason game against the Lightning, but a lot of the good players for the Hurricanes were still on the ice, I guess, not at court, the ice. It's a really fun game. If you're not a hockey guy, you're from Florida like me, don't watch hockey, I suggest going and giving it a try. It's fun to watch live. And then the other end of the Hurricanes is we've got a hurricane barreling towards Florida right now, and it is going to be one of the strongest, most intense hurricanes to ever make landfall in the contiguous U.S. And that's no joke. It's Cat 5 already, and it's got time to get stronger as it approaches. We're hoping some wind shear, maybe knocks it down, keeps it as a low Cat 5 instead of climbing even higher. But this is a super serious storm, and this is coming right off the back of Hurricane Helene, which has just demolished part of the Southeast. I see the death toll now above 200, close to 250. I've seen estimates of the death toll for this hurricane. And the U.S. is not prepared for a second one, but there is no time. It is coming, and it'll be here tomorrow. So, this is unfortunate. Weather events can be very devastating to large areas, especially hurricanes. And I know I've experienced firsthand what it can do to a small town.
Yeah, no, true across the board. Before I get back to the funny stuff, shout out to everybody, both in Florida and in the Western Carolina areas, but especially Florida, now that they're going to get that double dip. It is brutal. I know listen, our words aren't enough, but our thoughts are with you. And a shout out to everybody who's pouring help into either region. I mean, I know both regions have been wrapped. So We hope that we can provide some kind of fun for you. But in the meantime, I hope you all can stay safe, find a safe place, and then start to put your lives back together. I'm going to mention that again later on tonight on the Odds on Favorite podcast as well. My final 60. Well, actually, I want to mention the Canes though. The hockey game. If you haven't been to a hockey game, and Shane can speak to this better than we can, I know. Hockey on TV is fun, and playoff hockey is fun. All right, there's no question about it. But if you haven't been to a hockey game in person, it's 10 times more fun in person. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You can just feel the energy and the vibe. And especially the funnest part is when the fight breaks out on the ice between two guys. The whole stadium just stands up and watches this street fight between two bruisers who are used to doing it, and you just cheer for 30 seconds until one of them falls down on the ice. It is great. It is fantastic, and there is nothing like it anywhere else in sports that I've experienced. The in-person part of it is fantastic. My final 60 tonight, and then I'll see if y'all got anything else. Things I like and things I don't, okay? We all like different things, and I ain't saying nobody else got to agree with me, but things I like, the first half of the Manning cast on Monday nights now with Bill Belichick, I love it. Give me more of it, all right? I could watch every game this way. Between Peyton and Eli and Bill Belichick, I learned so much in 5 minutes of listening to these guys. It is fantastic. You talk about guys who understand the game and can teach it so well. And this is true of every teacher around the whole planet. Every good teacher, when they know their subject so well and can break it down so easy, you learn so much so quick. And they don't even mind telling you. They don't get offended when you ask questions. They don't get offended when you say something. They're just so good at this material. And listening to Peyton and Bill break this crap down on the first half of these games, I love it. I love every single second of it. Give me more of that. Things I don't like, and again, I'm not trying to crash these people, but the Amazon Prime Thursday night halftime and postgame stuff. I like these people, Whitworth and Sherman and all of them. I like these people. They do a good job. And I like the pregame, all right? They're going to tell me what I'm going to see or who's injured or who's playing strong or here's the tendencies of a certain player. I like all that. I don't need the halftime show to tell me what I just saw in the first half. And I don't need the post-game show for 30 minutes to tell me what I just saw in the second half. I saw it. I know what I saw. I don't need that. It kind of feels like too much. And I know they're trying to create atmosphere and party and experience and all of that. I get it, but I don't need it. It's not for me. I like the halftime show where they kick it back to the studio and they talk about something else that's going on around sports. And you kind of get a mental break to reset from the first half of the game. And then once the game's over, I really don't need to hear anything else. I don't think the player interviews or coaches interviews are worth a whole heck of a lot. They're going to just kind of, coach speak their way through the whole thing. So I wish Amazon Prime, I can always turn it off when I do. I wish Amazon Prime would go back to the more traditional setup at the half and at the post game. That's just my style. So that's my final 60. Shane, anything else before we shut it down for the night, man?
No, I mean, other than I think Austin made a good choice if you're going to attend your hockey game to pick the Carolina Hurricanes. They have the Surge. They've become lately known for crowd interaction, which is pretty mysterious because their head coach Rob Brendamore is 100% hockey purist, old school. I don't know why these guys are faking that they're dunking a basketball. It's a good thing we just won 2-0. But Hurricanes, great crowd out of that. And it's one of those ones where from what I've seen the Carolina Hurricanes when they were the Hartford Whalers. I've never been to Raleigh to get a chance to see that, but they say that they bring the great parts of the South with tailgating before the hockey game and then bringing that type of atmosphere, which is another thing that in most NHL cities you do not see.
Austin, final thought?
No, that was pretty much it. If you ever want to come catch a Hurricanes game, though, I'd love to go to another one. Come check one out. You got a place to stay here.
Oh, there we go. I'll have to. Everyone else I'm on a podcast with lives in the South. I'm the only one that's crazy enough to still live up north.
All right. Quick shout out to our network. I flashed it earlier. Simon and Friends, Tricky Takes. If you want baseball stuff right now, because baseball is hot, red hot, go over to Tricky Takes. They'll cover all of that as well as your NFL too. I showed you the other quick shout out to Simon Short. I didn't dwell on the statistics tonight for the Jaguars-Bears game, but he provided some of the statistics for that as well. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Austin, for being with us. Have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.